Hello, boys and girls. Since we did not get to have our Zoom call tonight, we wanted to record the video for tonight's lesson so you would not miss out on this lesson, and because your snack will not last till next week, so we couldn't just delay it. So I'm hoping that everybody's going to get a chance to watch this, and then we'll be right back on track with our Zoom call next week. You can see behind me that my bulletin board is very crowded tonight. I have a lot of things on there because there's a lot of things I wanted to talk to you about tonight. This is a pretty exciting lesson. But before we get really started on it, I'm going to go ahead and sing one song. I know I can't see you guys doing it, but I wanted to sing just one song because it really does go with our lesson tonight, and I know how much you guys love to sing. So we're going to sing My God Is So Big. And you know that song very well. Are you ready? My God is so big, so strong and so mighty, there's nothing my God cannot do. My God is so big, so strong and so mighty, there's nothing my God cannot do. The mountains are his, the valleys are his, the trees are his handiwork too. My God is so big, so strong and so mighty, there's nothing my God cannot do for you. And we are going to talk about something very big and mighty and powerful that God did in our lesson tonight. Now, if you remember last week, we ended with a very sad lesson. It was a very sad day, and just sad things happen, but very important things happen. If you remember, let me get on the right side here. We talked about this right up here. We talked about the 3 crosses, and we know who was on that middle cross, right? We know that's where Jesus was, and that Jesus died on that cross. And we talked about that Jesus wouldn't have to stay on that cross because Jesus had what? He had power. We've talked about how he could stop the wind and the waves and the storm from happening, and he could heal people and make them well and all kinds of things. And Jesus could have come down off that cross, and he could have called for angels and they would have come and helped him. But he didn't do that because he also had a big love. He loved us so much that he stayed on that cross so he could fix that big disaster we talked about a long time ago back in the Garden of Eden with Adam and Eve. That big disaster, Jesus dying on the cross was the only way to fix it. And he loved us so much that he did that. And after Jesus died, we talked about that a man named Joseph took his body and buried him in a tomb. Now their tombs, and don't worry about this angel and stuff right now. Their tombs didn't look like ours. When we bury somebody, we typically dig a hole in the ground, and that's how we bury people. But back then, they didn't do that. It was more like a cave, and it would be hollowed out inside, and then they would roll a big stone in front of it to keep it closed. And that's what they did. And then the next day, after Jesus died, the Bible tells us was a special Sabbath, which means on the Sabbath day, people couldn't work. They didn't do things that they normally would do. That was kind of the rules that the Jewish people had. And so Jesus was just buried in that grave. In fact, Jesus had told his followers that when he died, he would be in the grave for 3 days and 3 nights, and then he would be back. But I think maybe they had kind of forgotten about that. Or maybe they just weren't real sure that was going to happen. I think they were probably really scared because those soldiers came and took Jesus away, so they might come and take them away too. But early on the 3rd day, which happened to be on the 1st day of the week, that's the day we know as Sunday. So on that 3rd day, there were some ladies who loved Jesus very much. And I'm going the wrong direction again. You can see them. They were coming to the tomb and they were carrying some things. They were carrying oils and herbs, and they were coming to anoint the body. Now, we don't do that in our culture today, but back then they did. They would come and they would anoint the body, and they were worried about what they were going to do when they got there, because they knew that they had sealed that tomb up with a big heavy stone, and they weren't strong enough to move that stone. So they were talking about, how are we going to get in? How are we going to move that stone? And then something amazing had happened. They got to the tomb and the stone was rolled away. And not only was the stone rolled away, there was someone sitting on top of it. An angel was sitting right up there on top of that stone, and they were frightened. They weren't used to seeing angels, and they were very frightened. And they noticed inside that nobody was in the tomb. Jesus' body was gone. And so they were frightened, and they didn't understand what was going on. And the angel said, "Don't be afraid. He's not here. He has risen. Now you go and tell his other followers what you have found out." And so that's what they did. They took off and they went and they told the disciples what they had seen. And some of the disciples came running to the tomb to check it out for themselves, went in and looked, and sure enough, Jesus' body was gone. And they didn't know where it was gone, but Jesus had told them that he would rise again. He would be alive again. And that's what he had done. Because you know what? Jesus' power was more than any tomb could hold. There was nothing that could stop him from doing what he needed to do. He was the one who could fix the big disaster, and he wasn't going to stay dead. Death didn't have any power over him. And you know, the cool thing about that too is that because Jesus raised from the dead, that means that we will do that too. When we die, we don't stay dead forever. We will be raised again at some point and be able to go and be with God, because Jesus fixed the big disaster and made a way for us to be there. Now, we've been doing a memory verse that talked about that. And it said, "I am the way, the truth, and the life, and no one comes to the Father except through me." So Jesus was telling us all along that that was what was going to happen. Now let's see what else is on my bulletin board. There's some words up here. It said, God's wonderful surprise. Because God knew, and Jesus knew, that he wasn't going to stay in that tomb. He was going to be alive again. Now, somebody last week, I think maybe it was Zach, said that Jesus knew that even before he died. He knew he was going to be alive again. It was still very hard for him to die, and it still hurt a lot. But he did know. He knew he was going to be alive again, and that we'll be alive again someday and be able to be with him. Now, next week, we'll start talking some more about some things that happened after Jesus came back to life, and some of the things that he did and said and the people he saw. And those will be really fun lessons. But tonight, we just want to be learning about that grave couldn't hold Jesus. He had more power than that. He had a mission. He was going to save us. He was going to make the big disaster go away and make a way for us to be back with God again. All right, let's see what you've got in your packets, because you can still do these with mom and dad or big brother and big sister and stay right on track. And next week we'll be ready to go. So your worksheet looks like this. I believe that's probably Jesus, and that's probably the big old stone that got rolled away, and there's numbers on all the different things. So what you're going to do is you're going to use those numbers to figure out what color to color things. So everything that has a number 1 on it, you're going to color green. And if it has a number 2, like this part of the tree, you're going to color that brown. That makes sense. That's what color the tree trunk would be. If it has a number 3, you're going to color it gray. That would be kind of the stone back there that had the tomb. And if it has a number 4, you're going to color it yellow. So we'll have a yellow sun, probably some yellow flowers. You can see Jesus, and you can see the marks on his hands and on his feet, where they nailed the stakes through his hands and feet to fasten him to the cross. So he still had those scars even after he was raised again. And then it's down here at the bottom, there's a whole bunch of letters that go together that spell the name Jesus, J-E-S-U-S. And then they go frontwards and backwards and upside down and back and forth, so you can see how many times you can find Jesus' name in this part of your worksheet. All right, so let's talk about your craft. This is kind of a fun one. You should have a piece of paper that has a paper plate attached to it. And that is to make us think about the tomb where Jesus was buried. See, it's got a little opening right there. I colored mine a little bit gray. You probably can't see it very well with the light, but I did color it gray. And then you've got a little angel that you can color however you want to. Usually we think of angels having white clothes, but I made mine have a yellow sash, kind of like the angel in this picture has. But we really don't know what angels looked like, and we really don't know what their clothes looked like, but that's how I did mine. You can fasten him up here, and then you should have a stone, and you can color it gray if you want to, or you can just leave it the color it is. And on your stone, there's a little mark, a little dot on it. My light is really bright on there tonight. Let me see if I can adjust that a little bit so you can see better. Yeah, I think that's a little better. There's a little mark right there on your stone, and you're going to take your little paper fastener, your little brad, and you're going to punch it through that hole right there. So it's like that. And then, this is after you color it, there should be a little hole on your paper plate where your tomb is, and you'll put that fastener right on through that little hole, just like that. And then reach kind of behind it. It gets a little bit tricky, but you can do it. Reach behind it and open that fastener up so that'll stay in place. And once you do that, then your stone can cover up the opening, or you can roll it away, just like God did for Jesus when he was raised from the dead. And if you want to, you can put some flowers and trees and color the sky. You can make this as pretty as you want to. Miss Tanya's not real creative, so mine's probably not nearly as pretty as yours will be. But that's just a little craft to help us remember about Jesus being buried, but he didn't stay there. He was raised from that grave. And then we have your snack. And your snack's a little interesting tonight. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to do the video, because your snack's not going to last till next week, because they're in your bag. Shove a bag like this. You have something that looks kind of like a donut, but it's not a donut, it's a bagel. So it still tastes really yummy, but it doesn't taste quite like a donut. A donut would not have packed up in your bags very well. So hopefully one edge of your bagel is a little bit flatter than the others, and we're going to use our imagination. So take you a plate and put your bagel on it. You may have to just kind of hold it, or you may want to cut a little bit off the bottom to make it stay flat so it'll just kind of stand up on that plate. And then you should have a cookie in your bag. Now this cookie is not quite big enough to stand on the plate and cover up the tomb. You can still see some, but that's where we're using our imagination. And if you cut off a little bit of your bagel, then it probably will work a little better. But that cookie is going to be like the stone that rolls away so that Jesus could come out of that grave again. And then you have in your bag a separate little bag that's got some green colored coconut in it. We did this one time before when we were doing our voles, and you were able to make your vole go through the coconut grass. Well, we needed some grass on this one too, because it just wasn't really pretty with just a bagel and a cookie. So I am going to move my bagel and cookie out of the way, and I'm just going to sprinkle this grass on my plate. And it's yummy, and you can eat it if you like it, but in snack, we have a rule that says if you don't want to eat it, you don't have to. So I've got the grass on my plate. I'm going to come back and put my bagel back on there. That might actually make it stand up a little better. And then I'll take my cookie And if you're allergic to milk, you have an Oreo instead of a white cookie because this would have milk in it. And you can put that in front of it, and you can just use your imagination and pretend that that is the tomb that Jesus was buried in. And when it came time for him to come out, actually the Bible says there was a big earthquake. When it time for him to come out, that stone just rolled away so that Jesus could come out of that grave, because he was way too powerful for the grave to be able to keep him in. All right, so that's about all I have for tonight. We do have a new memory verse for this month. You guys have gotten so good at the last one, and your mom and dad should have it on the worksheet so they can work with you on it some, and we'll do it next week. But I'll just go ahead and read it to you, because this is what Jesus told us to do after he was raised from the dead. It says, "Go make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit. Be sure to teach them to obey everything I've commanded you. And surely I am with you to the very end of the age." So we'll work on that verse. It's kind of long, but you guys are really smart, and I know you can get it. So mom and dad can help you work on that, and then we'll work on it some more next week. And that's about all I've got for tonight. I really miss being able to see you guys and talk to you and ask how your day was and have you help me tell the story. But we'll be back next week, and you guys can remember what we talked about tonight. I'll leave my crowded bulletin board up here so we can review it a little bit next week, and we'll move on to the other things that Jesus did after he was raised from the dead. All right, you guys have a good week, and I will see you next time. Bye.